what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. So back in the garage today with the G80. As you saw from the B-roll just now, I got the TLG Mud Flaps. If you're not familiar with Tommy L Garage, I'll link his Instagram handle right here for you. I've been following him for a little bit, found him through Keys Motorsports, I believe. What led me to this is I've been looking for some mud flaps for the G80 for a little while, just because the tires are so fat on these M3s, and the hips are so wide as well. It just kicks up rocks. You know, I'm running the Pirelli P0s, but even the PS4Ss or Cup 2s or whatever you're running, they are really sticky. And if you have one of these cars and you're driving through a parking lot and tires are even remotely warm, you can just hear the rocks kicking up and it's just scuffing everything up under there. I mean, right now everything's stock on the side as far as side splitters, rear side splitters, but not for long. I'm gonna put some, carbon fiber pieces down there, and I don't want those to get scuffed up. So I wanted something that was sleek, also functional. As you guys probably know, everything I want to do is functional. Obviously I like style, I want it to look good, but functionality for me is the biggest driver of what I buy, in conjunction with how it looks. So take a look right here. So these are the mud flaps from TLG. So this is one front and one rear. Tommy sends you extra clips, which go in the front, and then two little screws which go down here. And then the rear side are going to get these big replacement screws for the rear fender liner, which actually are right here from the other side that I did. So these are for the rear fender liner, and these are the OEM clips that are in the front that get replaced. So that's the gist. Right now I'm going to get into the install and show you guys how I did it. So let's go. So these are obviously plastic. I'm not sure what exact plastic they are. I mean, looks like some type of ABS. I'm not a materials expert, so I honestly don't know. If you want to know, you can message TLG, I guess. But it is quality plastic, and it seems like, I'm pretty confident it will do the trick. But for me, I am going to take some plastic vinyl cleaner and protectant, and I'm going to basically just wipe the outside down. And really all this is doing is giving it a deep, matte, black look. Not oily, not greasy, not shiny. Just a nice, deep, matte, black, consistent look, which will go better with the gloss trim on the car. And also the coating will kind of help repel, water and dirt, which the idea, I'm hoping, will help make it easier to clean like the rest of the car, since everything else on the car is coated. So I'm hoping that this will help. This is obviously not needed. This is just me being very specific and precise about everything that I do. So I'm going the extra step to do this. This obviously is not required for the install whatsoever, but I think it'll look a little bit better and help repel and give it some type of coating. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, so we're at the front of the vehicle. So right here you can already see that's, a little bit of dirt, but that's mostly rocks and debris getting kicked up by the tire, just really hitting away at this plastic. So, I want to prevent that. And obviously the car's PPF'd. Obviously it's protection, and sometimes it seems like overkill to protect the protection, but some of you guys will get what I'm talking about. So these two are going to be removed, and then one additional screw is going to go right here in the panel to keep it from flapping. But before we do that, I'm going to take a little cleaner. I'm going to clean this area. The car's already been washed, but if this whole area is going to be covered and protected, I want it to be as clean as possible before the protection goes on top. so underneath is as clean as possible. And as you can see, with that being cleaned, and a small layer of just coating and being clean, there's still a little pitting, and I can feel it, just pitting and scratches right there. So the flaps will prevent that. So if you want a visual of how it's gonna go, top two holes are gonna get replaced by those two, as you can see. And then the third hole at the bottom, just it's a small Phillips head screw that's gonna screw into the plastic. The good thing too is that if you look right here, this plastic piece is about probably 1/8 of an inch raised away from the paint. So when it sits and then you bolt it flush like this, it's actually not touching the paint or your PPF for that matter. So, and then down here, it kind of sits away, and I'll give you a closer look once it gets installed. But the point is, it's sitting on this plastic flush and it never actually touches the paint. So with these factory push pins from BMW, you can drill them out, but if you take you know, a pry tool or a pick tool, this is just a heavy, thick pick tool, put it right in the center, take a small, not really a small hammer, this is about a 20-ounce ball peen hammer, but make sure this stays in the center, and then hit it a few times. You hear that difference in sound? You're just pushing the pin all the way through, and that just kind of releases it. Once you do that, it's not reusable, but this kit comes with replacement pins, so it doesn't matter anyways. So now when you pull these out, just be careful. I'm using just a long flathead screwdriver. I'm just getting behind this rivet, and I'm just gonna pull it up, expose the head just so I can get to it, grab it with my finger, and then pull it out. And that's it. So essentially what you were doing before is when you push that pin, it drives that centerpiece all the way through, and that's why it's not reusable. But when you're doing this, just I keep my hand right here, because if I slip, I want to go that way. I don't want to slip and go to the right, because my paint would get scratched, and then that would be catastrophic. Video over. So once again, just kind of pry that out, and once I can get a grip on it, the whole thing comes right out. So pretty simple. So I think it's easier if you do the center one first. Go ahead and secure it, and that way you have some room to pivot to put the second one in. Now with this, a rubber mallet I don't think it'll work, because you need something a little heavier and solid, because it's solid plastic. So I'm using my ball peen hammer, and just gonna hold my hand here and give it a few taps. It's probably gonna take a little bit more force than you think. But when you do it, as you can see, I was staying very straight. Don't go at an angle or you could snap that off. So now that the center is installed, we'll go ahead and line the top hole up. And then just check and make sure that the heads are flush. And if the heads are flush, it's fully secured and it's not going anywhere. So the reason that comes with the screw, as you can see, there is some sort of flap, and that would be annoying going down the highway. So it's a single Phillips head screw. So this goes into the bottom hole. It just bites into the plastic liner. So there's no need to be overly aggressive with the tightening as you're doing it, obviously, because there's no pilot hole. You don't need to drill because the plastic's soft enough. Just push while you're doing it. Pretty standard stuff. After a few turns, it will bite. There's no specific instructions on how tight to do this. I'm just going off what I feel is right. I mean, just based off my knowledge and experience. I think as long as there's no gap between the head and the flap, you're good. If you're moving this and there's a big gap and it's rattling, that's probably not tight enough. And I think if it feels tight, you don't want to go too tight. And this is metal into plastic, so you're not going to get that nice firm stopping point like you would with a metal screw. So you don't want to over tighten it. But as long as it's flush, it's tight, you're good to go. I mean, it sits very, very flush, which is nice. I think if you over tighten it, you're probably gonna get a big gap and it's gonna bow like that if you over tighten it. But if it's flush and it's snug in that plastic, I don't think it's going anywhere, and it gives a very nice flush fit. So with the rear, you don't have to jack it up. If you have a right angle driver, you can get to the two 10mm fender bolts. But for me, I just prefer to remove the wheel. So I'm gonna go ahead and jack it up, take the wheel off, give it a little more space, and also I can show you guys exactly what I'm looking at. Also how the flap looks inside the liner with the wheel off, so you can get a better view for the video's sake. Okay, so now that the tire is off, 1, 2 10mm holding the fender liner on. Those are the only locations that the rear flap is mounted. So I don't know if you can see, but same as the front, everything right here, that's not dirt. That's just full pitting from the rocks and debris being slung from the tire against the plastic and the paint. So the rear flap is going to start here and cover all the way here, extend out a little bit and underneath, which is going to protect this area and the bottom area as well, which is what I wanted. So only a few thousand miles in the car and it's already starting to pit. So same as the front, I'm just taking a detail spray and I'm just with my microfiber wiping along the edge of the car. So the rear flap essentially mounts just like this. You can see the two holes we removed for the fender liner, and those two screw holes are going to replace it just like that. And the fitment of this is pretty nice. I mean, it covers, if you can see the lining of the vehicle fender liner right there, when I put it over here, it covers it pretty nicely. And I'll show some footage down behind of how well it covers the rear side splitter section, which is probably the main reason I bought these, because every other brand pretty much just comes flush, doesn't drop down at all. So it just kind of protects the side of the car, which is good, but I wanted protection underneath as well. And I couldn't find any that just had that lower protection, a couple of inches to protect everything under here. So the fitment of these is really nice, which is why another reason I went with these. So for the installation of the rear, once again, 2 screws that come supplied with it. So we're just gonna take the first one, get it started. Now, if you can see, this is concave, right? There is probably a 3-inch concavity from the edge of the bumper to here. And this is obviously 2D, it's flat. So the idea is it kind of bends as it sits in here to kind of give it that nice shape. On contrast, it's not gonna screw flush into here, but these are rubber inlets, grommets on the other side of these. So the metal screw and the rubber grommet is gonna kind of dig in and get that nice bite. So you really don't have to have it be flush. And that kind of threw me off in the beginning when I was trying to figure out how this was gonna fit. I wasn't quite sure how it was gonna sit flush. And the answer is it doesn't. But once it's on, you kind of see how it makes sense. And it's just a simple Phillips head. And I'm just gonna run that in to get that started, like so. And then we're gonna take the bottom one. So same as the front, there's no specific metric on how tight or how far these go. You're kind of just going as you see it. If you kind of watch from my angle, as I'm tightening it, the shape is actually forming to the car. And once again, the idea is not to go too tight. And these most likely won't sit all the way flush. There might be a little bit of a gap behind here, but as long as it's snug and there's no lateral movement left to right or up to down, these should not come out because they're in those rubber grommets and it's a pretty tight bite. So they shouldn't come out. So once those two are snug, you are set. And the same thing back here, nice flush fitment all the way down, and it kind of curves to the angle of the vehicle, which is really nice. All right guys, once the wheel's back on, that's it, you're done. Sits nice and flush. And what I was saying earlier is that if you look up under here, you can see how wide this goes back, and it pretty much covers the entire rear side splitter section, or at least gives an extra 2 inches for road spray to get stopped by this and drop down, or extend it back, which without that on there, this whole section is taking the brunt of whatever your tire throws at it. So definitely protects it. It's a nice matte black. It has a small satin sheen just because of the coating I applied to it that you saw earlier, which looks nice. I think it kind of matches the tire graphene coating that I have. But overall, looks really nice. Good fitment, very clean. I'm super satisfied. That's it, guys. Install is complete. Really simple install. I think for the value of what you're protecting on the car with something as simple as that, I think it's definitely worth it. I did a lot of research on the internet and the forums for some of these other brands of mud flaps, and I think these are overall best product, best value, most protection, especially underneath of the rear section and the front section as well. So not just the side of your car is getting protected, but the rocker panels and rear diffuser sections as well. So overall, super happy, easy install, definitely worth it.